I'm going to have to spend the whole thing like this. It's going to be very funny. We'll get started just in a second. So I'm very jet lagged, just to let you know. I slept great yesterday, but last night I just didn't sleep. So I kind of was up all night. I used to do this a lot before presentations when I was much younger, but that's no longer the case. So it's getting a little challenging to stay up all night and then get up on stage and present. All right. I think the doors are closed back there. I was hoping that I could see your faces because I give a lot of presentations on Zoom these days, and that's always feels a little flat. So I think they're dimming the lights. That's what it feels like. I think they're dimming the lights a little bit for me so I can see a little bit better. So that's great because I like talking to people. Presenting, I like getting up on stage. I like talking to people. I'm not a big fan of like scripted presentations. I like to see people, I like to talk to people. We'll do our best here under the circumstances. But welcome to this session. It's Practical AI Lessons Learned from Building ProofChat. You know, they asked me to come up with a title. I don't even like slides. I usually use Excalidraw to do my presentations. I like that method. So they wanted me to come up with a title and then a description, all these really hard things. So I did my best with this title and with the subjects. But what I really want to do is talk about AI and FileMaker. And, the thing that brought me to FileMaker 30-something years ago was the second half of that word, maker. Right? I consider myself a maker. I like to build things. I like to have the control over the things that I build. I've just always loved that experience. And so that's been kind of the driving force behind my entire career in this community is how can we take this platform, this maker platform, and make it do more. And with the launch of AI sweeping through, obviously that's been sort of front and center to a lot of people's minds is what can we do with AI and what can we do with FileMaker and how do we bring these two things together like now. The future is hard to predict, obviously. The models, the AIs are getting better, but also we're learning the constraints and we're learning that, I would have told you 6 months ago or a year ago that things would be a lot farther along than they are. It turns out that people just don't move that fast. We kind of have a natural friction. And the models are slowing down, which is great because it feels like we have some time. But there's definitely a wave. And I feel it. I use either Claude or Cursor or ChatGPT pretty much all day. And so making those things and that experience work with FileMaker has been something that I just really, really wanted to do. And so that's what we've done with ProofChat, and we've made it available. There's a free version that you can use and distribute as much as you like. And then there's also a paid version which has more things and like paid support and things like that. But so as we're building this, we learned a bunch of things about AI, and so I thought I would both show you ProofChat and then also walk you through some of the lessons that we learned or some of the things that we learned about AI along the way. And I hope I can leave some time. Let me set a timer here so we can do a little bit of Q&A at the end because I really want to talk to people more than just about anything else. So real quick, I don't think I said my name. My name's Todd Geist. I work at ProofGeist. I'm the CTO. We're a Claris Platinum partner and a hosting provider. These are some of the products that we offer, along with custom application development services. And a couple to point out here. We're going to be talking about ProofChat, which is not on this. It's coming up. But Automatic is a hosting platform. We've got a booth over here, which you can come and find out about all the cool things that you can do with Automatic. And we'll see a little bit of Automatic later in the demo. So ProofChat, full-featured AI chat for FileMaker. So what we wanted to do, again, was we wanted to make a really high-quality AI chat. So something that looks and feels as much like, say, Claude or ChatGPT as possible, and make it available to quickly move into customer solutions. Because a lot of the time as we're talking to customers, it's hard to just imagine what AI is in their solution. So we wanted a way to say, here's what it is, boom, in your solution, and now we can start to experience AI and get a sense for what that can bring to you. And so that's why we built ProofChat. And we really wanted the UI to be high quality. And it's one of the things that I think we can do particularly well. We've had a lot of experience in shipping web viewer-based applications, which ProofChat is. Auto deploy, another one of our apps, is in use by something like 3,000 servers, is also shipped the same way. And if you want to make a good streaming interface, you're going to make it with HTML. So we wanted to make that, and then we wanted to make it available. And then we wanted to make it extendable with FileMaker scripts, because again, like the whole thing in my entire career has been like, how can we just make this platform better? And I think the secret power of all FileMaker developers is scripts. Scripts are the magic. Scripts are where we make things happen, where we make our solutions, come to life. So that was kind of the goal. Let's make a rich chat interface. Let's make it extendable. Let's make it easy to get into a solution. Let's make it extendable via FileMaker scripts. All right, so let's jump in here. So So this is the demo file that comes with ProofChat. I added a few buttons and scripts for this particular presentation, but it basically looks like this. It's a very simple solution: customers, contacts, invoices, and products. Not a huge amount of data, not a complex solution, but simple enough that you can understand it quickly and start to get a sense for what AI can do. And you can download this, and you can start, you plug in your license key and your OpenAI key, and you can get to work pretty quickly. And what you get is this kind of a UI, right? Which kind of looks somewhat familiar. And it's got a lot of bells and whistles, like you can switch to dark mode if you like. You can also change the colors of all the buttons, because again, we're in this wonderful world of web technology, which lets us kind of blend these two worlds together. And so there's all of that. But then we can do some fun things like, also I'm going to talk a lot to the AIs, which I do a lot. And I think one of the key things, the one lesson that's not on the list, is one way to think about AI is it's increased bandwidth. Ideas to computer, faster. And especially if you're not a fast typist, or if you're jet lagged, typing is tough. So I'm going to use a program called Super Whisper. Anybody heard of that, Super Whisper? It's a great text to or voice to text thing. So tell me a story about FileMaker developers in the city of Antwerp. And I pretty easily just get that in. That's way faster than I could type it. So let's hit send. And here we go. So you can see we're getting this nice streaming UI coming in, what you'd expect from OpenAI or ChatGPT or Claude, things like that. And it gives me a nice little story about FileMaker developers in Antwerp. Among them was Els, a developer who can make FileMaker bend to her will. So just another couple things to bounce around here. So right now we've got this running with OpenAI. OpenAI is going to be the best model for doing chats with, especially if you stick with the free version, because it's really the only one that you can do streaming and tool calling together. We'll get into tool calling in a little bit. But just to point out, this is OpenAI, and so it is sending those prompts to the OpenAI servers. All right, so that's that. So let's do some other things. Let's do find the last 10 invoices in the system that are over 10K. So it's going to execute. So this is executing a tool, and we'll talk a lot about tools, where it's actually going to generate a SQL query, and then it's going to perform this. It's going to pull that data in, and it's going to show it in this nice UI, and then it's going to give you sort of a summary of what it sees in there, right? So we have database query. We've got this UI we can expand and contract. We've got nice charts, which is kind of cool. But one of the other interesting things is, because this is tightly integrated with FileMaker, so we've got our chat app here in this window. We've got our main app here in this window. Notice we're on contacts over here. But over here, I'm in customers, and I can click on that, and I navigate. I'm sorry, invoices. Sorry, this is invoices. If I click on the second record over here, notice I'm on the second record over here. So we're able to tightly integrate the chat UI, which, in case I didn't show it, is simply, that's it. It's one layout with a web viewer on it, and that's pretty much the whole thing. But we're able to get this tight integration back and forth so that you don't lose context, or you can go back from your chat interface back to your FileMaker interface. And that's kind of nice, because one of the things that's true about AI, and we'll talk about this more, is it can hallucinate, right? We've all seen this. And it can come up with things that maybe aren't accurate. So giving people who are using these kinds of UIs methodologies or ways in which they can quickly navigate back and see the source data builds the trust within the application. All right, let me see. I got a few more demos I want to try here. So, so get my KPIs. So this is one of the ways in which we can make things a little more consistent, is we can give it specific instructions about what to do with certain types of queries, and they can produce these really nice results for us through, again, this tight integration between scripts and the chat. So, okay, let's have some real fun here. So, so I've got a business card here. And it just took a quick snapshot. I'm going to drag it in. Create a contact with the information in this image. And what we're going to see here is what we call human in the loop. So it actually understood that business card. So it's not OCR. It's not recognizing the text in there. It actually understands that it's a business card. And it can look for specific bits of information because it knows it's a business card. And we've given it some rules, which we'll cover in a bit, about how to do that. And I can either confirm or cancel this. And once I do, it's going to tell me the record was created. And now it's giving me things I might want to do. But I can also just snap back to that new record that just got created. Okay? What do we think so far? I like cheering and clapping. It doesn't interrupt me. I like feedback. I like to hear that people are actually, hopefully enjoying what we're doing up here. And so please call out, whatever. Or I think we're going to hold questions until the end because we have the mics and everything. But, I don't mind interruptions. So let's see. What else do I want to cover here before we move on? We can do, let's just do this one real quick. Create a simple HTML document that does a hello world. And then we'll move on. So it gives you this HTML preview. You can see it back and forth. So we have HTML, we have charting, we have KPIs, we have all this stuff built into the chat itself that you can just use along with the tool. And one of the things that's, if you've done, how many people have used like Claude or ChatGPT or something like this to like craft a chart or something with your data, right? And what do you notice? Like if you say you do it on a Monday and then the following Monday you ask the same question, what tends to happen? you're going to get a different result, right? And that's fine. Sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you're exploring and you want different results. You want to see something that maybe you haven't thought about. But what if you just want your sales numbers? Do you really want it to figure out how to do the sales numbers again and do it differently? Or shouldn't we be able just to say, hey, if I ask for my sales numbers, just give me the sales numbers, right? All right. So let's go back to the slides here. So rich streaming UI, modern UI components that are consistent and will be used over and over again as opposed to generating them from scratch all the time, which again, sometimes that's fine, but oftentimes it isn't. So let's talk about the 7 lessons, and 7 was just an arbitrary number. I probably have 15, but 7 will probably be all we can get to if we can get through those. So first of all, I just want to call out lesson 1 is hidden, hybrid, and headless. So ProofChat is only one way to do AI. I want to call that out. It's like it's not the only way in which you can use the FileMaker AI script steps to or integrate AI into FileMaker. You can do it in at least 3 ways. There's probably more, but I'm going to show you 3. So the first one is what I call hidden. In other words, the user doesn't even maybe know that AI is involved. They're not looking at a chat UI, all right? So let's go back to here. And what I'm going to do is this button up here just says add a contact from business card. Okay, we'll click it. Actually, before I do that, let me delete that record since we're going to get the same record again. Let's do another one. Okay. So now it's asking me to pick a business card, which I will pick. And now it's going to go ahead and we get the same thing. But the user doesn't really know that there's AI happening there, right? But that was AI. We did use OpenAI to look at that image, understand the image, extract the data that we wanted, and send that to a script, which then creates the contact record for us, first showing that nice card window to let you cancel or confirm that operation. All right, so that's just what we call hidden. I think this is actually quite a good way to use AI in FileMaker. It's actually, because you don't have to deal with the UI part. Making a streaming interface in FileMaker is quite challenging. You can kind of do it in a text block. We'll probably look at that a little bit later. And it's okay, but it's not what people expect. But this is great. So you can come up with all kinds of use cases where you're just using the AI to like extract data from certain documents and then send it off to scripts which are doing whatever they're doing. And you don't have to have a whole chat UI in there to do that kind of thing. Okay, so we looked at, ProofChat is really this hybrid solution. It is embedded chat within FileMaker, and you looked at all the benefits we've seen so far. It's more flexible than hidden behind a button, and the AI decides what to do, but you do have to do more. But the cool thing is that if we go to chat, and so I've already shown you create contact, but what if instead of a business card, I have a CSV? Create contacts from the records in this CSV. So there it goes. You can kind of see in the background it started 3 times. Confirm, confirm, confirm. And all those records are in. Now, here's the most important thing. I did not write an import CSV script. I didn't write that. I used the model, send it the file. If it was an image, I would say, hey, it's an image. They would actually know. I could just say, look at the data in this file and generate contacts. If it's an image, it'll do it. If it's a CSV, it'll do it. If it's JSON, it'll do it. I don't have to write separate scripts to process all that different kind of input data that generate response from model script, and the LLMs will do that for you. Does that make sense? So it's very flexible, right? You could probably do this with a button, but you'd have to work a little harder. You'd have to probably add some more branching in it. What the AI does, what the large language models do, is they kind of build in the conditional branching for you. They figure out what they're supposed to do. The script figured out, or the AI figured out, that it needed to use the AI tools to create contacts 3 times because there were 3 records, and it just did it. I didn't have to write a looping script. I didn't have to do anything. It just used the same script. That we will, sure, yes.
Just repeat the question. What does the tool know about your solution that's in the front end, and how do you convey that information?
Yes, right. So setting up and configuring tools. We're going to get into that. So the question was, how do you teach the AI about the solution, the fields, the whatever, and also like. How do you tell it what to look for, right? Like if it's a business card, how do you tell it what data it needs to extract and that kind of thing? We're going to talk about that. So let me go to the third kind. I think we got one more here. Yeah, so this is headless. I used headless because there's 3 H's, you know. But really it's the AI is elsewhere. It's no longer in FileMaker. So to look at that one, so I'm going to open up Claude. So if you look at the tools that Claude has, one of the ones it has is Proof CRM data. And I'm going to show you how we have this set up, but it's something that you can all do today, tomorrow, if you want. It's included with AutoFMS, one of the other things that we ship. It's free. You can download it, put it on your server, and you can set up MCP servers that will connect to your FileMaker solution. And so that's what I've done here, and it's got 3 tools. So find the last 10 invoices in my CRM and generate an interactive chart with all the data. Oh, I didn't have my cursor in there. Let me select this. So now this isn't ProofChat. This is just Claude set up to call into our FileMaker system. And so here it goes, finding the last invoices. So it's figured out. And here it's now going to generate a nice interactive chart. So this is kind of, so we're using the data from our FileMaker system. We're using all of the capabilities that Claude has, which are quite extensive. And you could use this with ChatGPT or with Goose, or if you're using other MCP clients like Cursor or whatever, they will all be able to connect and get data from your FileMaker system. So in this case, the AI, the large language model, the thing that's doing the processing, the agent, is not in your FileMaker app, it's somewhere else. And you've just enabled hooks into your FileMaker app using an MCP server. You know, this is cool, and this works especially when you're doing exploring. But you notice it has to go through this generate. Like it doesn't know anything about like custom components or anything. So it has to invent a component for you. But here it does. You know, we got an invoice dashboard, the average invoice, 9 invoices overdue, and we've got this nice UI that it built for us. You can see the timeline and everything. So this is using Claude and its capabilities to generate HTML and just a FileMaker script to retrieve that data. Make sense? So that's the third one. We're going to have to speed up here. Okay. Lesson 2, probabilistic versus deterministic processes. This is the key thing. This is one of the most important things to understand and to get familiar with. And that's, again, why we did ProofChat, was so that you could start to experience this. Because it is a new way of thinking about creating business solutions. LLMs are probabilistic, which means they are predicting what they think is the next best word or token in the chain. And that's interesting because it lets it figure out what tools to call and to do all that kind of fun stuff. But it also means that it can hallucinate, right? We've all heard the stories. We all know that that's true. So we need deterministic processes along with that in order to say, when somebody asks for a certain thing, don't guess, do this. And that this will always produce the same result every time it's called with the same input data. So it's probabilistic versus deterministic. So we've kind of been saying this. They're really good at things like coding, summarizing text, deducing intent. So it can tell from the words that I'm putting into it what it thinks I want it to do, and then it will do its best to do that. But what they're very bad is at repeatable results, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we already mentioned this. So what you can do to constrain the possibilities, the probabilities, down to a smaller set is you give it a bunch of context. I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about this if you haven't dealt with it yourself already. But you basically say, along with the question you ask, here's all the information that you should use to answer this question. Right? And so that is, called prompt engineering. You've all heard the terms. And that's pretty good. It will sort of help guide it to a more constrained set of possibilities, but it still will not be able to do things like get your sales numbers for this week, because you would have to be putting all that data into the system every time. So you wouldn't want to use that. You want those sales numbers to be produced exactly the same time every time somebody asks for it. So we inject a little determinism. So tools. So in AI's lingo, these deterministic workflows are called tools. So in all of the LLM models the ones that do accept tool calling will take a property, which we'll look at in a little bit, that is basically the definition of the tools that it's supposed to be able to call when it needs to call them. And then it uses those. So it's essentially the tools that are configured for the application get put into the context. And then the LLM is constrained via prompting to say, use these tools to get more information. So this is it. Context plus agent loops plus tools equals value, right? So without context, you're going to have a difficult time. Without agent loops, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's basically this chat process we're just looking at, plus these tools, you need kind of all of that to create value. At least for business systems, you're definitely going to want that kind of thing, because you're going to want to be able to do things like create the contact exactly the same way every time. Like you would not want to generate a execute data API function to create a contact record. Like you wouldn't want to generate that on the fly every time, because it's going to be different. So you want to give it a tool that does that exactly the same way every time. LLMs can figure out what tool to call. So this is the agentic loop. So in this case, you have a chat agent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a chat agent. There's other kinds of agents and other kinds of agentic loops, but chats are what most people experience these days. And so this is basically how it works. The chat agent sends the context, whatever has been put into the system prompt or the instructions, and whatever question the user asks goes to the LLMs. And the LLMs make a best guess. This is what I think should be the next thing. And by the way, I've got some tools. I think you should call these tools. The chat agent goes, great. I got some tools I can call. It then calls those tools. And then at the end of that process, it makes a judgment to say, you know what? We've got some more context. Let's go back to the LLM and repeat that process. And that is this agentic loop until it figures it has enough to answer the question. Right. This is the other big one. AI tools or FileMaker scripts. This is your favorite deterministic workflow engine. You all know how to do it. It's the most powerful piece of of programming logic that you have at your disposal in a FileMaker system. So the good news is that you all know how to write FileMaker scripts. There's nothing magic about a FileMaker script that is an AI tool. It is something that you can all do today. You don't need to really learn very much, except maybe how to pass the data in, and that's easy, and it will just work. So this is the awesome power that you have with FileMaker scripts. Deterministic and debuggable and securable. Like, this is pretty key. Like, one of the things that we like about ProofChat is that it is using the current logged in user's permissions. So if your system is secure, then your chat is secure, because we're not in terms of like what data they have access to. They can only get access to the data that they're logged in with privilege sets. They can only call the scripts that they have the rights to call the scripts, all that stuff. So, and it's also debuggable. You can watch these tool calls happen in the debugger, and you can see them, and you can step through them and see what they're doing. So in ProofChat, this is how we've done this. So ProofChat, we have a JavaScript chat agentic loop. So that's the web viewer, and we have in the stuff I've been showing you so far, we've got FileMaker scripts that call the LLMs, the models, using the generate response from model. They get back tool calls, and the web viewer, it basically gets back a list of scripts to call and the data to call it with. Nothing magical about it, and it just calls those scripts in the FileMaker solution, and the data comes back into the web viewer. So this agentic loop happens within the client, within the web viewer, and it's calling scripts to talk to the model, and it's calling scripts to get data and do things in your FileMaker database. Make sense? All right. So let's look at how we configure tools. So in ProofChat, we have, there's a settings panel here. And the settings is where we set up a number of things. AI accounts, your API keys, your different providers, the model assignments, which I don't think I'll have time to get into here, but it's a powerful thing that's built in. You can also, ProofChat can also register other MCP servers. So in theory, you could have another FileMaker file on another server that has an MCP server attached to it, and you can connect it to this version, so this instance of ProofChat, and it can use those tools over there too. You can use any MCP server, and there's thousands of MCP servers available, pretty much for anything that you use in terms of API, like things like Google Calendar, Gmail, GitHub. Take your whatever project management system you use, whatever. There's an MCP server. And so you can plug that right into ProofChat, and it can use those tools as well. So if we look at tools, so let's take a look at how we do this. So let's look at the create contact thing. So basically, when you create a new tool, you pop up on this panel, and you enter in a tool name, you describe it, and this is where you're teaching the LLM what it does. So the chat agent will, when you say create a contact, it will say, oh, I've got a tool to create a contact based on what you put in here, right? And then this is the script that it's called. Then we have our parameters set up. And so here, we've set up first name, last name, email, phone, and title. The first three are required. The last two are not. And if we look at the setup for that, we have a parameter name is first string. Its type is string. First name, sorry. Its type is string. And we have a description. And we do that for each of the parameters. So again, we are teaching the model, here are the tools you can use. And when you want to call the create contact script, here's the data I need you to have before you can call it. That's how tools work. You describe a schema, and that schema, if you're interested, looks like this. This is essentially what gets sent along with part of the context to the LLM as the tool definitions. And you can see Has create contact, and then the parameters are first name, type is string, description, blah, 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 all the way through. And then down here, it's got the required stuff. And now for the output, we've got a couple different things happening here. You can just choose text to be and it'll just take whatever the script returns, and it will just use that in the response. Or in this case, what I wanted to do is display a FileMaker record. Basically, just that little view record little component that popped up, so we could click on it and drill back. And this is the expected data format for that FileMaker record component. And just to reset what that is, that's this guy. Right? That's the FileMaker record component. And so that's what lets us get back. It says, oh, this is the component I want to use, so it displays that. And this is the data that it needs to have. And then along with that data, I can click and I can navigate to that record. So in ProofChat, when you're setting up tools, you both define the script you want to use, the parameters that go into it, and whether or not you want to use one of those custom components. So if we look here, we've got others. Actually, let's look at get KPIs. So get KPIs is that's it. We have a description. There are no parameters for this one because the KPIs are pretty much what's the key performance indicators right now. If it was what's my sales numbers, you might want to do it for, you might want to have a month string or something in there. And you describe it's a month string and say, give me my sales for July 2025 or whatever. But in this case, we don't need any parameters. So the tool schema is pretty simple. In the output, we choose KPI display. So here's the different components that we have in here. So we looked at data visualization, which is that nice charting and graphing thing that we saw. We've got our KPI display. We've got FileMaker record. We have some others here as well. You choose that, and then what it shows you is what data do you need to send, does your script need to return in order to display what's in that component. So here, it's showing you, let's see, let's look at that one here. We got KPIs. So here we're returning 3 cards, and each of those cards has a type, a value, and a bunch of different data. And depending on what's in that JSON object, it'll display different cards, right? So your job of your script, so if we look at the get KPIs script, and in this case, I've short-circuited it for the demo. But here's our get KPI script. And all I'm really doing here is I'm returning this JSON. In a real solution, you would go run whatever FileMaker scripts you needed to do to generate the data that would fill in the slots on here. Like, what's my revenue, the value? So you'd write a script which does deterministically what is your value for revenue, and then it would substitute it into this. And your conversion rate, same thing, what's your value? And then you've got some other things, current, target, and whether or not you want to show the bar or not. These are all things that, because it's a FileMaker script, you can set this JSON object up to be whatever you want. And as long as it matches that format, it's going to display one of those cards. So if you only want to display one card, you could just get rid of that. And then it would only display the revenue card. Does that make sense? So let me see, what else we got here? I'm going to come back to this one if we have time, dig into the AI primitives. There's probably a lot of other talks that dig in deep on this. I think what I'll say is that there's examples in the ProofChat file for all of these things. And so you can take a look at them there. And maybe I'll just call one up real quick so we can see what we're doing here. So the natural language search. I love the natural language search. It's pretty great. Basically, this is just configuring the AI accounts. That's all that's doing. And this one script step can do, on the layout, it'll just do a find based on what the user puts in, which is pretty great. It's a very simple and easy way to get started with AI in FileMaker. Another one to look at when you're digging into this later is if you look at the chat, chat agent. So this is pretty complicated, and I can't get into it in detail here because it would take a long time. But I encourage you to take a look at what we're doing here and going through all of the different setup to get this to run. But basically, at the very end of the day, we're going to generate a response from model. And that is going to stream that data back to the web viewer using Perform JavaScript in Web Viewer. And that's what we get that's how we get that nice streaming UI that comes in. The last one I'll point out, because again, super powerful, is the database query. So in this case, this is kind of interesting because there's a script step, perform SQL query by natural language. But it's actually like 3 steps in one, because you can use it so we're using it, not there, sorry. I want to look at the configure DDL. So in the DDL script, what we do here is, all I want is the DDL, and all I want is, for these tables, get me the database description language, which is the fields and the tables and fields in the system. I just pick the tables that I want to use, and the same script step, if I just do get DDL, will get me the DDL, which is kind of cool. It will also, the same script step will also generate just the SQL query. And this is kind of nice because you might want to do other operations on the SQL query before you actually execute it. And you also might not want to you might not want the model to do the SQL query for you because it's going to burn up tokens on every one of those, all of those results that come back. Like if you do a query and let's say it returns 5,000 records, and you've chosen to let the model itself or this script step generate the data, you're going to generate 10,000, 100,000 tokens. And those output tokens are the more expensive part, right? The output tokens are, depending on the model, sometimes 3 to 5 times more expensive, right? So if I know for Claude Sonnet 4.5, I think the input tokens are they're $1 per million, and the output tokens are $5 per million, right? So it's more expensive to send it. And if you just get back the execute SQL, which I get back right here, I can run execute SQL just fine on my own, right? Not a big deal. So this is a pretty powerful step because it's 3 steps in one. You can get your DDL, you can get your SQL statement, and then you could also, if you want, you can use it to iterate on that query and come up with, sort of a full agentic mode loop to get you back the best results that it can do. I prefer this control over the whole thing. All right, so we're moving along here because we're going through a lot of time. Okay, I want to talk about private AI, and I want to cop to the fact that you guys in the EU, you have much tighter regulations than we do in the US. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on EU privacy. I know it's more stringent than what we have in the US in general. But I will say that, for example, OpenAI will give you what's called a BAA for HIPAA compliance. HIPAA compliance is one of the more stringent compliance standards that we have in the US for managing health data. Health information, personal something, personal, I don't know what it stands for. But it's basically the medical information standard. And they will give you a BAA, which will basically say you can use OpenAI in a HIPAA compliant manner. So I don't know whether there's anything like that in the EU. I don't know whether people would care. They may still not want to do this kind of stuff. The other thing I would say is that, I think I tell customers, if you're using Google for Gmail and everything else, they've already got all your data. Just to be clear, they already have it. So, I don't know. You can think about that. You can think about that as well. But we can do private AI. And you can, we saw today in the keynote, they're going to be shipping the new AI server that runs separately, which is really important. Do not run your AI server on your production FileMaker database. That it's a bad idea. And so now we're going to be able to separate that very easily onto its own server. And you can use those, the FileMaker AI server works great for the text embeddings. But if you're going to do the generate response from model stuff, you're going to have to run big models. And those are going to need to be very beefy servers. Let's see, go back here. So just to iterate this point again, the FileMaker script steps do send your data to the model, because it's not even so much about the FileMaker script steps. You saw I got back that invoice information, and then I said, make me a chart. Well, guess what it had to do to make the chart? It took all that invoice data, sent it to the model to make the chart. So if you're wondering, like, are these steps going to send my data to the model provider? The default answer is yes. Unless you're going to be running your own private AI server, you should assume that the providers that you're using are seeing your customers' data. Cool? Or not cool, but that's the way it is. It's not cool at all, right? Okay, so running your own AI server can be done. And compared to OpenAI, it's going to be very expensive today to do that. If you're going to use like chat, you're going to want to use a tool calling, streaming, smart chat compatible model. You're talking about one of the bigger ones. You're talking about one of the newer ones from OpenAI or from Meta or like DeepSeek or something like that. You can run those. But you're going to need significant hardware to do it. If you're going to rent them in the cloud, they're going to be, I'm guessing, 2,500 euros a month or more. It's certainly $2,000 to $5,000 to rent a GPU-powered server in the cloud in the US. So do the math, whatever that is. The other option would be to get the hardware yourself. A Mac Studio Ultra is $5,000 to $10,000. And you might be able to get by on that. But you have to, even that, if you have 100 users doing chat, not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to run 100 users chatting on a single Mac Studio, even if you spend, I don't know what the max is on a Mac Studio. It's probably more like $20,000, but you're going to have to spend a lot. And the problem is they're not going to be able to do the number of queries in a row. So that being said, that's where it is. You can do it. It's very expensive. I think this is going to come down, and I think it's going to be a dramatic difference within a few years. You may have heard that Apple is signed with Google to use Google Gemini to do Siri. And one of the reasons they're doing that is because Google Gemini Nano will run on an iPhone and it'll run on an Android. And so Google is actually shipping some very powerful small models that are beginning to get to the shape that we can run them and that they can actually do, they're someday going to be able to do chat. I think today they can probably do those perform find by natural language or perform SQL query by natural language. They could probably do that today without too much trouble. They're small enough, you can run them on certainly one of those Mac Studios without too much difficulty. It's the chat that is really going to cost you the money. My gosh, that's 45 minutes already. Oh my gosh, very loud. Okay. I am addicted to chat, and I'm addicted to vibe coding. I'm addicted to, basically, I do everything in chat. I do my timesheets in chat. I do my project planning in chat. I wrote all of these slides in chat. I did it by, I just stream of conscious what I wanted to write into Claude, the way you saw me talking, and I just kept iterating until I had a nice outline. I then took that outline, I gave it to Notebook LLM, and I said, make a podcast from this outline, and let me hear what it sounds like coming back to me. Oh, it's phenomenal. Like, it's kind of creepy how good the two voices are they come up with. So it's a conversation. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's amazing. Notebook LLM, you load in a bunch of data and say, make me a podcast. And it'll make you a podcast. And it's like 16 minutes of like, went through my presentation. Like, you know, like as though they were watching it or they had seen it or something like that. Really useful for me to like hear what I was going to talk about. And then somebody did an MCP server for Keynote, because Keynote, I can barely use Keynote anymore. So once I had my outline, I said, Claude, make my slides. Made a bunch of slides in a Markdown document. And I said, okay, Keynote MCP server, make all my slides. And it made them. Now I had to go back and tweak them. But again, it's the thing that's, the thing that I want to stress is that it's the bandwidth thing. I don't want to copy and paste. I don't want to type if this can do it for me. And so that's how I do it. So I've been trying really hard to get FileMaker to do some vibe coding. And that's kind of one of the last things I want to talk about. So I am going to need to use I'm going to need to switch over to this automatic AI runtime, because this is what the automatic AI, instead of FileMaker scripts, we have a server that knows a lot about FileMaker scripts. And so we're going to use that as the engine that does our vibe coding. So let's see. What do I want to do here? I want to do the following. I want to get contacts JSON. We're just going to go for the big one here and hope it works. Here is some JSON data. Well, let's do it this way. Get all the fields on the contacts layout, and then write a FileMaker script that will take a JSON document and parse it and loop over the items in that array and create records for each of the objects in that JSON array. Here is the JSON. Okay, let's see what it does. So hopefully it's going to call the tool first to get the fields on the layout. This is a little slower because it's got a lot of prompt engineering that has to go on to make this all fly. So it got the layouts, and now it's going to hopefully start up again here and generate our FileMaker script. Come on. There we go. It's going to eventually write it, I hope. Here we go. Here's our FileMaker script. What do you think? Now, I've noticed this. I don't know why. It keeps pausing, and I'm not sure what the deal is there. But let's just tell it to keep going. I forgot the what?
You forgot how to type since you use speech recognition.
Oh, maybe. You might be right. Ah, what's going on? Lovely. Okay. Move. Keep going. Here we go. It seems to be very up and down here. I don't know whether there's the speed difference in, I don't know whether it's OpenAI is different over here. I'm not sure. But you can see it created a script. That's pretty nifty. used open transaction, commit transaction. It's pretty complex. But let's go ahead and just copy it to, let's preview what that looks like if we convert it to XML. So now what we're doing is we're going to look at that script and we're going to use tools that are on the server that knows about each FileMaker script step and can figure out how to parse out the parameters from each one. And so this can actually take a little bit because it has to loop through every one of these. But here is the clipboard. So that's the XML generated. So now we're just going to, this is where we pray, right? Oops. Let's get rid of this old script here. Let's see how we did. That's pretty good. So I'm almost out of time, and I didn't want to have time for questions, but I don't know when the next meeting starts, probably pretty quickly. But let me just wrap up the slides here at least. So the answer is we're getting there. We're able to do some things. We're able to do some things. I find it useful for doing things like I showed, like here's some JSON, here's the fields, write me the set field scripts that can parse that JSON into the fields. That's great. And I can quickly move along. And it helps me just iterate quickly on my FileMaker stuff without having to type or poke at little tiny icons in the script maker, which drives me kind of bananas. So this is the big one. A year ago, I was pretty concerned that AI was going to really come and really give us trouble in terms of being able to replace us. That turned out to be wildly optimistic. And really, the good news is that what this does is it makes people with programming skills even more valuable than before, because in order to use LLMs, there's no question that the industry that has been impacted the most by LLMs, well, probably, unfortunately, garbage social media and ad copy and things like that. But second to that is coding. And the reason why is that coding is code. And so therefore, you can verify whether or not it works. So the hallucination problem is less. It is a big deal in the programming world. But you have to be a programmer to be able to use it today. Even a FileMaker programmer. You don't have to know TypeScript or anything like that. If you understand coding concepts, you have a leg up, and you can start to use this stuff and to do even more things that you couldn't do before. Before I leave, we have a sale going on. EngageU is your discount code. Those are all the things that you can buy. You can come by the booth too. We have a little QR code you can zap to get there. I should note that ProofChat Pro, which is available today, we do charge $2,500 a month, $2,500 a year for that, because we're doing a lot of iteration on it and we're improving it radically. The free version is free, and so you can look and see on the. You might be able to get by with the free version with no problems, but if you want the pro version, you get $500 off with this EU discount coupon. So it's a good deal. And this is the documentation, and there's the pricing where you can compare the different features. The AI script editor right here is available in the free version. It's limited to, right now I have it limited to 100 requests per day, but that's still a lot. You can play around with that for free. So pretty much everything I showed, you can use for free. And it's only when you want to engage with us and do really fancy things that you may want to investigate the ProofChat Pro license. So that's it. I think I'm done. And I will hang around and answer questions. I think that's pretty much all we're going to have time for. Let me say real important thanks to the organizing committee for inviting me here. I wouldn't have probably come otherwise, but you guys just made it so easy, and you were so nice. And this is great. I've not been to Antwerp before. The fact that this church next door was built 700 years ago is freaking cool. This is a great venue. So I just want to say congrats on a great venue and a great event so far. And thanks for having me. Really, really enjoying it. Any questions? Right there.
How did you convert the text to XML?
Good question. By default, ProofChat comes with a set of scripts that will do that using the base elements plugin, but you can easily swap it out for MBS. In fact, we will include MBS as a just built-in, you can choose in another version coming up. But it's very easy. It's a FileMaker script. And we just call a script that says, here's the text XML. It runs in FileMaker. You can use either plugin that you want to convert that. And they're free. Both of those are. Well, the MBS is, I don't know. You have to ask Christian if the conversion part is free with MBS. I'm not sure. But he has a bunch. MBS, even the free version of MBS rocks. I love it. I don't know if you could see. I had it in my script editor and stuff. But also Base Elements is great, and it's free as well. And hopefully they're going to get rid of the need for that. I keep asking. They keep saying it's possible, but they haven't done it. Yes?
Yes. So is it using OData or Data API?
So the only time we're using OData is the MCP servers, which I didn't show you. It's in AutoFMS. There's a section, you probably saw, I think Louis demoed it probably in the second session, the MCP server setup. We have something very similar if you go to AutoFMS, if you go to your web console. By the way, how many people use AutoFMS here? Oh, there's a lot of people who haven't discovered it yet. Oh my God, that's amazing. By the way, we migrate 16,000 FileMaker files a month with AutoFMS. 16,000. It's a lot. So you should check it out for a lot of reasons, including MCP servers, and that's also free, by the way. Did I answer the question? Oh, no, I didn't. So the MCP servers that we saw with Claude, where I did that, that's using OData to call the script. But otherwise, it's using the FileMaker JavaScript bridge that started in 19.6. Anybody else out there?
Hey, hello. The components that return in a different format.
Yeah.
How complex are they're packaged in with ProofChat, but how complex are they to build your own, or is that possible?
They're not. I mean, with vibe coding, they're getting easier and easier. One of our top priorities is to allow you to plug in your own components. So you could make a plugin if you're familiar with TypeScript or anything like that, and you can vibe code with Cursor. It'd be pretty easy. You'll set up a VDAP, you'll bundle up a thing, you'll put it somewhere on the internet, or actually might even just have you put it in a field in FileMaker and just inject it in. That is one of our goals. I think it's actually super important that we're able to do that. Right now, we're going to be adding more components, but we can't do everything that you want, right? And so if you've used any of the coding tools out there like V0 or if you use Cursor at all, how many people use Cursor? Anybody try Cursor? So Cursor's great at UI. It's fantastic. And so ProofChat is built on ShadCN, Tailwind. It's just like, if you use those same tools, it's just going to work. So that is a goal. Yeah, somewhere in the back I see somebody.
I was wondering, for the deterministic flows,
yes.
Have you played around with seeding the prompts and just passing the same temperature, same prompt, same seed?
I have a little bit, and it definitely helps. You constrain, especially if you're doing things where, like sometimes the task you want to do, like one of the things we do in that convert to FileMaker XML is we look at each line in that text that's generated a FileMaker script, and we say, what script step is that? And it's basically a prompt that has the script name and its ID. And we constrain it so tightly with temperature and schema that we basically say, you got to give me a number between 1 and 300. And that's all it will return if you do that. And so you do have, that's one way you can do it. And so for certain types of things, that works really well. And that's definitely something you're going to want to do when you're building, especially those hidden AIs I talked about. You're going to want to do that.
Let's say just in the chat, can you also say like, okay, let's
have
this prompt, and then I want to create a button that permanently does the same prompt, for example?
Yes. Sort of. But yes, we're going to do that. And We're going to make it really easy. Right now, you can pass in suggested buttons that will show up at the bottom in a new chat. And those are all under a script. Pretty much like the temperature, the seed, the suggestions, the system prompt, all of that is configurable with a FileMaker script. When ProofChat says, I want all this information, it calls scripts. And those scripts are there for you to edit. And so you can, depending on the context, create a totally different system prompt, a different temperature. And that should all work.
Okay, I think it's time to make way for the next speaker. Thanks so much, Todd.
Thank you, everybody.